we'll have 3 extra care brand new homes being built very soon. Now, under our current plan, the way we do it, we've got 6 new roads, £150 million. We've got a new motorway bridge, 2 new railway bridges, 7 new primary schools, 1 new secondary school, a new community centre, which has just been approved tonight at the executive with King's Church, new country parks. However, there are limits to what housing numbers we can accommodate. And this authority, and I would ask whether the Labour Party and the Liberals have done this also, have worked with the other 5 unitaries to actually lobby the government to point out with the local economic partnership that we cannot go on accommodating this level of housing. We contribute 38 billion a year to the UK economy, and we're in danger of passing a tipping point. We're also working with the government. We have produced a pilot, which Lindsay is involved with producing, and I think some of the comments made by Prue are the comments in that pilot, as she well knows. That pilot is supposed to be confidential until we hear back from the person who has requested we do it.
I haven't seen it, David. I came up with that idea myself on Monday.
Did you? Well done.
How dare you!
I do, David, I do think, sorry, it made a point. I have not shown that pilot document to anyone in the other than myself in the Liberal Democrat group. It is confidential.
Doesn't matter.
Thank you. Moving on. Ian Pittock.
Thank you, sir.
First be sit. Thank you very much. And would you all be watching the lights because people are getting onto the ambers already. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am delighted to be able to say something positive about the budget this year, or at least the medium-term financial plan aspect. In last year's Budget Council, and in all Conservative group meetings leading up to that council, I criticised my then Conservative colleagues for failing to demonstrate transparency and public accountability in the MTFP. All budget lines were laid out by directors, that is senior officials, rather than by those who are publicly accountable, namely executive members. Due to the lack of transparency and the avoidance of public accountability by the then executive members, I felt unable to support the budget and abstained in the vote. This year, I noticed that whilst budget lines are still laid out by senior officials, at least the initials of the publicly accountable executive member is shown against some budget lines, even if these look as though they were added as an afterthought. I commend the executive members for finally grasping the need to demonstrate some transparency and public accountability. It is a shame, though, that it took some years and much demanding on my part for this to occur. The message that residents should get from this is that whilst the Conservative executive members continually see no reason to listen to their own backbenchers, a problem that lies at the heart of the Conservative Party generally, it seems that they fear issues that opposition members may raise on behalf of residents. I assure them that in the coming months we shall press for much more change in the interest of all residents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Ian. Could I call on Councillor Andrew Pollock?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Lib Dems usually give us some interesting statements. Yeah, I got the wrong one. I'll change microphone, sorry. The Lib Dems usually give us some interesting chuckling at this side of the chamber, particularly when it comes to numbers. I did hear a lot of, are we going to spend lots of more money? I didn't quite hear how it was going to be financed, but then that's nothing new. One bit on the housing piece, I may have got my numbers wrong, but as David mentioned, 20 million over 2 years for 500 houses seems to cost us about 40,000 a house. Well, I don't think that includes land costs, and I don't think it includes any SIL contributions. So again, Lib Dem accounting, where they're going to build these houses and how long it's going to take them to actually get planning permission to do it. I suspect 2 years is a bit optimistic. But then we are never surprised sometimes the Lib Dems' optimism on certainly money and what actually takes place. We had another round of their concerns about Working Town Centre. I think we've said before, we expect this to be an investment, we expect it to pay its way. I'm perhaps not as pessimistic about the future of High Street as our Lib Democrat colleagues. I think over the many years we've seen the High Street in Woking change, improve, and I would expect that to carry on into the future. I can't remember Richard, I think it was Richard or Harry. Harry and I were having a conversation in Cope the other day, and there's a lady who was from Maidenhead, and she said, I come to Woking because it's a nice place to come to. It's got nice design, nice architecture, nice feel, and she was sitting there just looking at the landscape Heathrow. So I think that you're wrong. I have been a supporter of the Town of Woking Town Centre redevelopment. I do believe it'll be a financial success. I'd like it to be a even better financial success, but we can't have everything. Going back to staff and contracts, sorry, I'm running out of time. We always keep posts open when we're doing reorganisations. We always do short-term contracts. We have had a few issues, I believe, with some staffing. I've certainly been very impressed by one of our interims, and I think that we've done a good job in recruiting some very high-quality people. And you need to do that when you're going through reorganisation. And again, I think you're, oh well, we won't need to do it, and we'll do it differently, we'll get cheaper people. It's crap. Thank you.
In a word, you didn't agree. Okay, Andy Price. Andy,
Every month I struggle with the relative difference in this and me, and I'll try and overcome it this month. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Graham and the team, for all of the hard work you do not only to prepare this budget, but also the work you and your team do for us all through the year. Congratulations also to the Tory party. You won't often hear that. These plans for local government we now see coming to full fruition. We see it in the country at large, where failing Tory Northamptonshire County Council has all but bankrupt itself. But we see it locally, where the elimination of the revenue support grant as a source of funding for local services is part of the long-term aim of the Tory party to reduce the role of local government. For the Tories nationally, local government is little more than a human shield for their failing and vindictive policies towards the poorer and more vulnerable. The increasing reliance of this borough on its own council tax receipts is deliberate. It shifts the burden of taxation from more progressive taxes, such as income, corporation and inheritance taxation, to one of the most aggressive of taxes, council tax.
Absolutely.
Again, this is entirely consistent with the Tories' long-term economic plan: reduce taxation for the rich and increase taxation for the rest of us. Looking at the budget, I was struck by the misery contained in some relatively small numbers. In a budget of about 100 million, there was a paltry and inadequate 31k increase in bus services, which I guess, I'm assuming, is the part of the tender for buses in Woodley and Whitegates. It simply does not do justice to the anguish which residents in my ward and other wards in the area feel at the loss of a loved service. Tory councillors in the ruling group are clearly not exerting sufficient pressure in this area. It was little surprise to read last week that this local authority was the 7th worst local authority in the country in terms of bus miles reduced, or the 7th best, depending on which part of the table you want to look at, with a 22% reduction in bus miles travelled. It's no surprise that the worst local authority in the country is also Tory, and it's your friends in Bracknell. Looking at the budget, I was also reminded of the missing 6 million, of the 3 years where there's been no increase in council tax. In those years, we received a council tax grant, one-off commitments to compensate for the loss of revenue in these areas. The problem is, those grants, little more than a bung from central government, have stopped. That means revenue we would be raising now has gone. So we're 6%, or about £6 million a year, behind where that's every year, forever. A massive price to pay for some short-term political advantage. In the midst of all this, residents are incredulous that scarce resources are being found to award yourselves a pay rise. Finally, David's impressive list of assets that we've accumulated over the last year missed out one vital asset. Things can and do change. The biggest asset we've acquired in this last year is a Member of Parliament who actually believes in local government.
Mr. Mayor?
Chris Smith, I think
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, thank you, Councillor Croy. That was very, very interesting. It touched on a lot of areas, not many kind of specifically about what you would actually do for the people of Wokingham, what budgets you would change, and everything like that. So it was generally kind of quite all over the place, but not specifically what you do and what the Labour Party would do for the people of Wokingham. You say kind of we're using the poor as a human shield for vindictiveness. I find that a personal insult. In this council, we have maintained our focus on protecting the vulnerable. Indeed, if you want to say that a council is using the poor as a human shield for their vindictiveness, have a look at Reading Borough Council. Have a look at their cuts to the council tax council tax reduction that the poorest get. Have a look at their scheme. Compare it to ours. We are much more generous because we know how important it is to protect the vulnerable in Wokingham and in our society. You say that kind of bus travel has gone down. Well, we also have in this borough the highest car ownership per head in the UK and possibly in Europe. It's a measure of our success as a borough that people have the cars, that they can go driving, that they can take their place how they want to themselves. So yes, we might have lower miles there, but people have their own cars to do their own thing. I think you've once again raised your point about a pay rise. It was 1%. It was what the officers got. And it was 2%, but it was also from the Independent Remuneration Panel. Can I say that again? The Independent Remuneration Panel recommended this. I'm just going to say, as you say, you've spoken not a lot about things that are happening in Wokingham. I will just run through a few things more. £2.1 million more for the education of our children. £2.3 million more for adult social care. £500 million of infrastructure spending, food waste being collected, Elmsfield, new social housing, new primary school, new roads, 1% decrease in housing rents. I mean, I could go at park and ride schemes, I could go on and on and on about what Wokingham Council is doing for our residents and the residents of this borough. And I honestly think that after the petty insults that you have thrown at the Conservatives here, Woking Borough deserves better from you and better from the Labour Party.
Councillor Callum.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Follow that, as they say. The leader of the council commented that there were many issues where there was common ground between her party and the Lib Dems, and I thought that was quite an interesting point to raise. The big difference is that you have the ear of government, where the Lib Dems don't. Having the ear of government hasn't worked very well in getting financial settlements from them, has it? So your connection to the government hasn't really worked at all. I mean, on housing, I must say you and the government are in accord, and that is to build 3,300 houses a year for the next 20 years in league with Bracknell, Reading and West Parks, and I rest my case.
Oh, well done, guys. Almost all the way out there. Gosh, where do I go? Mark Ashwell. That was a good example, Gary, and I hope that your colleagues are all taking
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I have some of Gary's time? Would that be all right? Just share it. Oh, okay. Okay. As lead member for Children's Services, I can proudly announce that this council recognises that education is not a by-product of our society. It's actually an integral part of our society. And as a result, this council has been at the vanguard of investment into education and into the care of Wokingham Borough's children and young people. We've built and opened a new secondary school in Arborfield, the Wokingham School, and this includes the new community use sports facilities with a large sports hall, all-weather and natural grass sports pitches. We've built the new primary school in Wokingham Town, the Floriette Montague Park, providing 420 primary places plus a nursery and a community use all-weather pitch. We've commenced the expansion of Beechwood, Highwood, Loddon primary schools in Woodley and Earley. We've completed the expansion of Graiseley Primary, Shinfield Infant, Shinfield St Mary's Junior, and Floriette Silver Meadow Primary School in Shinfield is currently under construction. Planning consent has been given for Matthews Green Primary School in Enbrook, and project delivery work is well underway for the first Arborfield Garrison Primary School. And there's more. We've built a new ASD unit at St Crispin School and a sixth form centre. 2 new blocks at Enbrook School.
Without sprinklers.
Well, you know. Replacing entire temporary buildings with modern purpose-built accommodation for English and maths teaching. We've completed a major investment at Bournemouth School, including a new hall, sixth form centre and administration block. By placing education at the forefront of our investment strategy, we've helped facilitate a staggering 92% of our children that attend a good or outstanding school. And in the care of our vulnerable children and young people, we continue to invest to save. Our multi-agency safeguarding hub, affectionately known as MASH, is a wonderful example of getting the right service to the right people at the right time. MASH brings together a team of professionals from a number of partner agencies to deal with the collation and assessment of risk for children and young people in Wokingham Borough. You'll see we set 100,000 aside in our capital programme for improvements to our MASH. An investment in the recruitment and retention of our very own fabulous foster carers means that in the last year we've placed 97% of our children in care locally. And did you know, and not many people know this, that investing in local foster carers saves £500 a week per child. That's $250,000 a year per child. And you know what? Those children are much more likely to thrive as close to their own Wokingham Borough community as possible. So, Your Worship, the 2 slogans to hang on to from Children's Services, in no particular order, there's only 2, investing to save in the care of our vulnerable children and young people, and investing in education to sit central to the communities that we serve. Thank you.
As I love children's services,
You let me go. But it was Gary's bit as well, because he was collaborating.
Okay, I think it's the turn of Clive Jones in the corner there. You ready, Clive? Go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Before I start, can I congratulate you on raising so much money last Saturday? I know that the money will be well spent helping cancer sufferers, which we both know is a very worthwhile cause. So, Mr. Mayor, under this Conservative administration at Wokingham Borough Council and under the Conservative government propped up by the right-wing DUP, our services are at a really critical state. Perhaps fellow councillors will think that this is just another whinging remark from an opposition councillor. But it isn't. But it isn't, and I'm so glad that you two said yes. These words, our services, are at a really critical state, were the words used by the leader of the council on Monday morning on the Andrew Peach Show on BBC Radio Berkshire. What an indictment, what an administration that under her leadership and the leadership of the Prime Minister, our services are at a really critical state.
The comment is made totally out of context. We all know, every person in this chamber know that services are at critical points. And if you don't think that, you shouldn't be in here.
I don't agree with you, I'm not taking it out of context. The power is in your hands to change the situation. Why don't you do it? Why did you have to let it get in this critical state in the first place? The leader of the council went on to say that Wokingham Town Centre regeneration project will bring in extra revenue. Will it? In the forecast last year, it was £10 million profit for the council. This year, it's somewhat different, less than 5 million. What will it be next year? Break even or even worse? Losses? Savings for 21st Century Council project were last year forecast to be 10 million over 3 years. New forecast, 4.75 million over 3 years. What are you going to forecast next year? At this rate, there won't be any savings. Let's hope that all of the pain that is being endured by our staff is not for zero economic gain for the council taxpayers. Our capital programme is heavily weighted towards Wokingham. In the next 3 years, 75.5 million will be spent on Wokingham Town Centre regeneration. Has the bill now reached 150 million since the project began? Nothing for Early, nothing for Winnersh, £50,000 for Twyford. Why is everything spent on Wokingham? The council's total debt is now hurtling towards 400 million at an alarming speed. That's nearly £6,000 of debt per household in the borough. Our services are at a really critical state. That's what the leader of the council says. Our finances are also at a really critical state. Mr. Mayor, let's hope that the Conservatives locally are not leading this council to bankruptcy.
Rubbish, absolute rubbish. 300,000 omission in your budget, more than we've done.
You know, I've always wanted to use that. That's the power, isn't it? Richard Delinsky. 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, as Executive Member for Adult Services, Health, Wellbeing and Housing, I'm going to bring this down to what I think is the truth. I've heard some rubbish tonight, and it's come from over there. Let me begin by saying that this budget continues to build upon the valuable work of our adult services, supports the health and well-being of our residents, and provides decent homes for our most vulnerable. There are few councils that can say with any confidence that they are making a difference in reducing homelessness, but this Conservative-led council can. Significantly, 138 applicants on Band A, those with specific and complex needs, were housed in the past year. Not one homeless family has had to wait for more than 1 year to move from temporary accommodation to a permanent home, the majority being rehoused within 6 months. For example, we were able to house a very poorly person to a fully adapted bungalow within 2 months of the family being awarded medical priority. I'd like to see Reading do that. This has been achieved by a Conservative council that plans for the future, has vision and embraces innovation. Our council-owned housing company, Wokingham Housing Limited, has alone delivered over 120 homes. Not only that, but homes that exceed all decency standards, as demonstrated by Phoenix Avenue. As such, WHL has been nominated for the prestigious National Housing Award for Development Programme of the Year. Further, without responsible consecutive Conservative budgets, we could not have delivered the supporting living solutions with the opening of both Foster's and Birch's extra care homes. This year we begin phase 1 on the regeneration of Gorse Ride and are on track to deliver not 250 houses but 500 new affordable homes across the whole area. As a consequence, our housing team has been deservedly nominated for a National Housing Award for Strategic Local Authority of the Year. This responsible budget will continue to serve our residents, and I'm pleased that it includes a forward plan to deliver 1.1 million for day facilities for the disabled. Not only that, but also 2.4 million for disabled facility grants to enable independent living. Much has been said nationally about hospital bed blocking. But this Conservative-led council consistently outperforms both our neighbouring and other local authorities in reducing delayed discharge from hospitals for our older residents by providing a very effective and unique Better Care Fund. There are many other achievements that I could list, but with so much national debate on the pressures placed on the mental health, I want to highlight just one more significant achievement. Our older persons mental health service rated outstanding. This service has no waiting list.
If Richard has taken some of Gary's time, the next person is penalised some of Richard's over.
That's a little bit. The next person is you.
Unfortunately, the rest of the speakers are all on that side of the house. Next I'll be in Norman Yorkers, who will, of course, set a fine example.
There's a lot going on in this portfolio, and it all feeds into our principles and priorities. For example, vibrant communities, health, well-being and quality of life, and maintaining and improving waste collection and recycling. There isn't enough time to list everything that's going on, so I will summarise some of the items and hopefully keep the time. In the waste area, it's the policy of the Conservative group, as we've had already on this council, to retain weekly collection of general household waste and recycling. It's also our policy to add to the recycling where there is a clear environmental and economic case. To that end, earlier this month we expanded the range of items that can be placed in the recycling black boxes for curbside collection. So now plastic pots, tubs, trays, foil and cartons have been added to the mix. We also announced recently that we will add a separate food waste collection from April 2019, and plans for that are underway. We are also encouraging greater use of the glass spring bags dotted around the borough, and we do wish to increase the number of those. All of this puts us on track with our aim of achieving 50% recycling by the end of 2020. Moving on to outdoor facilities, during the last year we've opened new 3G artificial surface football pitches at Arborfield Green and Ryers Green, and tennis courts in the pavilion at Cantley Park. During the coming year we plan to add a 3G pitch at Emmerich School to be used by the school and the local community. We're also planning to significantly improve the facilities at California Country Park. Moving on to indoor facilities, we've recently awarded a new contract for the management of our leisure centres and look forward to working with the new operator, improving the offering and getting even more people active in the borough. We already have one of the most active populations in the country. In January we opened the leisure centre at Arborfield Green for public use. We are rebuilding the leisure centre at Ryers Green and will open the new building in the summer. There will be a forecourt hall, a gym, studio, new changing rooms and a community room with a kitchen. The other big project just commenced is the building of a new leisure centre at Bullmarsh, which last time I checked was in Woodley, not Woking. The planning application is due to be submitted at the end of March, with demolition of the old centre during the summer. The new centre will be a substantial improvement on the current one, both in terms of condition and in what it offers. There will be a 6-lane swimming pool, teaching pool with a movable floor, so adults and toddlers can be accommodated at different times, and a forecourt sports hall, gym and once the Bullmarsh Centre is open, we'll press on with the demolition of Carnival Pool. This will be replaced by a pool, teaching pool and other sports and cultural facilities. In addition, we'll relocate a Woking library to that building. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Simon Weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A little about planning and enforcement. As usual, the development management team continues to be exceptionally busy with very high planning applications being received. minor householder applications are now running at an extraordinary and unprecedented rate of 400 a month. Over 3,600 applications were received last year. Whilst some of these are for very small projects such as home extensions, that number also includes major applications where one application alone will be for many hundreds of homes, usually associated with our strategic development locations. Despite this growing workload, I'm pleased to report that 94% of major applications were determined within our target time and 92% of minor applications. This high performance has continued, and actually last month, January, we achieved 100% performance with our major applications and 94 on minor applications. Planning appeals have continued to put significant demands on officer time, but despite recent challenges around the Council's 5-year land supply, we have successfully defended 74% of the 94 appeals received. We've had the additional burden of speculative developers, who will remain nameless, trying to secure permission on unsuitable and unsustainable sites by attempting to exploit planning inspectors' erroneous interpretation of our 5-year land supply against a background of 9,000 approved but as yet unbuilt houses in the borough. We've heard a lot tonight about the need for more appropriate housing. Last year, 2016-17, we built 933 new homes. And bear in mind, 35% of those are categorised as affordable. In the first 8 months of this current year, we've actually built 1,183 built. We've also identified a further 1,467 homes currently under construction. This improved delivery trend has allowed us to recalculate our 5-year land supply as now standing, as previously mentioned, at 6.7 years. This will definitely assist us in defending less appropriate sites from speculative developers. Finally, enforcement. 770 cases were investigated. Although many were resolved through voluntary compliance, 14 enforcement notices were issued. Additionally, certain problem sites resulted in court appearances, which resulted in successful prosecutions, fines and cost recovery. The Council is now using the Proceeds of Crime Act to try and ensure transgressors lose the income received through persistent and deliberate breaches of planning.
Thank you very much, Simon. And last but not least, Councillor Keith Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, Comrade Croy isn't here, but I'd like to address some of his... He's gone up the small room. Has he? I'm not surprised considering all the rubbish he talks about.
Carry on.
Anyway, I'd just like to pick up a couple of things. He sings the praises of the new MP, Labour MP over there, and pointed out how much he is in favour for local government. That's not surprising. He is still a councillor on Reading Borough Council. Time and time again, Labour MPs have criticised people for multiple jobs. Here we've got an exact example of that. On buses, Councillor Croy talked about finding 31,000. Well, the reason why we have to subsidise our buses is that Reading buses, who are wholly owned by Reading Borough Council, which we all know is a Labour council, they refuse to work with us and provide an appropriate bus service for the people of Woodley and Earley. And that's despite us asking both the MP and Councillor Croy to work with us on a cross-party basis, on an open book basis, to actually resolve the issues. Because I think that's the answer, an open book process. So, I'll get back to my what I was going to actually be talking about, is we've talked about maintenance. Lindsay mentioned maintenance, that we should be doing the research, doing the evaluation to make sure that the maintenance is carried on the roads that deserve. To pick up the leader's comments, guess what? We do that already. So that's another one on that long list. No, you don't. Yes, we do. So let's put it into context. there is 1,831 roads to actually maintain. That's over 720 kilometres of roads. We've also got the A329M. Last year, 1,000 roads were patch and repair, 350 were fully resurfaced. My final comment I'll make, which I'm sure you're going to enjoy, because I'm going to sit down then, on car parks. Car parks is a very...
Can I just clarify that the MP from Reading, he stopped taking his councillor's allowance when he was elected, as you know.
Is he doing the job?
On car parks, now car parks are normally estimated as a good indicator of footfall. The higher the car park sounds, the longer people stay in your car parks, the better the footfall. Last year, in Wokingham, there was 1.4 million. Sorry, 1.4 million hours. I did look at it.
It's over.
Hang on, members.
Right.
3 minutes is up, Keith. Can you wind up, please?
Okay, 1.4 million hours. In Wigley, it was 1 million hours. So people are still coming in and they're paying for their tickets and they're staying long. It's a good representation of footfall.
Thank you very much. There being no other indicators? Oh, there is one. Did you indicate earlier, Mr. Munro? You did not put your hand up. Did you? Go on.
Oh, yes, he did.
As I'm in a more generous mood tonight. Have you noticed that? As I'm in my generous mood, you will have 3 minutes. But when that red light goes on, Stuart Munro.
Mr. Mayor, you're so kind.
I know.
Thank you very much. I thought you purposely passed me by. Very well. Thank you very much. So I'd like to highlight some of the areas that I think we've heard some strange things about this evening. Firstly, I'd like to repeat again, we're on target to deliver 500 new affordable homes. Everybody keeps talking about this, and we're looking at ways we can improve on that. And actually, I'm quite proud.
Excuse me, point of order.
Oh dear.
I specifically said about investing in Wokingham Housing Limited to make its capability move from its current capability of about 60 to 70 houses a year up to 200 to 250 million houses a year. That is where the majority of the funds will be needed. I'm not talking about the houses.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because of course that's exactly what we're doing with our housing company. So thanks again for volunteering. Yeah, must have read. Anyway, part of the town and village regeneration programs, I mean, I think this party wanted to build a big box where we'd have deliveries.
That's right.
And they'd all come from collect their goods that they clicked online. I'm very pleased to say that we're still on track and on budget. Yeah, with a 52 space car park. And also, it's not just retail we're doing. Just one thing I'd like to point out in the town centre thing, which is on track and on budget, is that the new bowling alley, the Super Bowl, has recorded 4 times as much trade as the old one. I mean, I think somebody said, was it going to make any money? Yes, the budget's exactly the same, and after we've paid off the debt, it will produce £4.9 million for use across the whole borough, not just in Woking. And yes, we will be looking at other projects across the whole borough. Moving on to the investment portfolio, which I think we had some strange things that were also discussed about tonight. We're up and running in that area, and I'm hoping soon that we'll be able to announce some specific detail from the housing companies also, which are about to return £750,000 annually to the council's general fund. So all of this stuff adds up. Moving on to business and other projects, I'm pleased to reaffirm our support for local businesses. In particular, working supported by the Town Council whilst the Marketplace repaving scheme is completed, which I called big potholes the other day, but it's now starting to look really good. Additionally, we continue to help support the business to apply for rates relief with the help of professional advisors. And finally, Mr. Mayor, I noticed you got a light up there, or I'd like just to talk about one thing which I think is a big success, and that is broadband across the whole of the county and Woking. And by the end of 2019, 99.5%, the highest number of all of the authorities, will have access to superfast broadband. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are now at the end of the speaker, so I think we can now proceed to the second of the original motion, Mrs. Julie. Do you want to speak now, Julie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Am I right in thinking, as I've been well behaved this evening, I'll get 20 minutes? I'll try to be as brief as possible, Mr. Mayor.
Would I treat you unfairly, Julie?
No, you wouldn't, Mr. Mayor, so I'll take it to 20. Right. As clearly stated by our leader this evening, this authority continues not only to be the worst funded authority in England, but also has the potential to have a negative revenue support grant up to 2020. To put this into context, we receive £40 per person from central government, compared to other councils who receive around 250 from the government. And the government is now consulting on the possibility that not only will we lose our revenue support grant by 2020, but that this may turn negative. In other words, our residents could be asked to pay for more redistribution of money to other councils in the country. Clearly this is not good news, and we're actively campaigning against this unfair and completely undemocratic proposal, and have already had meetings with various ministers as well as the Prime Minister.
Hear, hear.
Much has been said this evening about leadership, and in Charlotte Haytham-Taylor we have a great leader. To actually be able to get to speak to the Prime Minister directly, and to actually get her recommendation that we will go on to speak to other ministers is a real credit. We're proposing a council tax rise this evening which allows us to offer a balanced budget, whilst retaining a safe level of reserves and continuing to invest in our services. The proposal this evening is for a 5.49% increase, which equates to about £1.43 per bound property. This includes the 2.5% already discussed for adult social care, as we are seeing an unprecedented level, whilst at the same time seeing a reduction in our government grants. What I'd like to do now is turn to some comments made by my colleagues on the other benefits. I think Clive mentioned earlier on this evening, why don't we change things? Well, I think actually getting a meeting with the Prime Minister and other senior ministers is about as good as you're going to get. All as we can continue to do is work with our MP, and when you were talking about a fantastic MP, I could have sworn you were talking about John Redwood. But, we also mentioned earlier this evening, Mr. Mayor, the possibility of bankruptcy.
He answers his emails.
Thank you. Can I reset the clock? No, okay. Also, some colleagues on the Lib Dem benches were saying about bankruptcy. Can I remind them that when they had control of the council back in the year 2000, they overspent by £2 million and didn't actually realise it.
No, we didn't. There was a missing amount of money which was in the hundreds of thousands, and it is a myth that is being passed around. And if this is repeated, we will take it up, because it was not. It was around about £100,000 that was missing from an individual account.
It's nothing like it. Which the Tory council left. The Tory council
Members, thank you for the clarification. Anthony, now speaking outstanding.
Thank you. I'm afraid I was there and I had to clear the mess up that you left.
That started with yours. Your start.
It wasn't £2 million. I most surely wasn't. It was a few hundred thousand. And this year, you have overspent. Made a mistake. You threw in your children's services account.
£400,000 now.
Right. No, just a minute, Anthony. You have made a point, and Lucy, and I noted. Anthony, you have made a point. I would ask you not to use that particular word, albeit I understand what you're saying. No, members, moderate the language. Please continue. And you've run out of Julian's time, but I will give him another few seconds after. Anthony, please
Very briefly, the chief accountant came to Frank and I in May 2002, and he told us we were 1.9 million overspent when he closed the books. So Jeff Saltzman said that to us. I rest my case.
It's a shame the officer who really knows it has left the council, and I can't answer that.
Mr. Mayor, if I may continue, what I do find slightly strange is that it started off at 100,000 and then it's gone to multiples of hundreds of thousands, which I thought, in the way I learned maths, was millions. But there you go. So, dealing with some other points this evening, the 700,000 overspend in...
Just a minute, Julian. Right, just a minute. You're way out of time. You've had a lot of time. No, just a minute. Please, Julian, you're out of time, but I'm going to give you another minute to complete. Then I shall turn to the leader to sum up. Okay? So you've got another minute. If members would allow now the member for finance to complete.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now I know what it's like to be on the generation game. Right, so if I can deal with the £700,000 overspend in adult social care, £360,000 of that relates to a sleeping in allowance which had been passed by the tribunal, which has affected all councils, including Lib Dem and Labour councils. Also, this evening, Lindsay's mentioned to build more affordable homes. We've actually built more affordable homes in the last 2 years than we've done in many, many years, and will continue to do so. But also,
Borough Council hasn't.
but also, the last point I'd like to make, Mr. Mayor, is the Lib Dems seem to consistently talk down Wokingham Town Centre. Is there any reason why they can't support what is a good idea and is actually working very well? And perhaps our retailers should actually understand why the Lib Dems are talking them down. Thank you.
This is a funny job here, John, would you like to sum that all up? Have you had 3 minutes?
It's going to be tricky in 3 as well to say. I'm not sure whether the Dems have been for the last few years, maybe listening to Peachy. Their speeches don't reflect where this council is today and what's in the budget book. We've set out a budget of investment, efficiency and protecting all of our services for the most vulnerable. Lindsay says build affordable homes. We are building affordable homes. We're investing £21 million over the next 3 years in affordable homes.
I was criticised for
62 million, sorry, that's not correct. The overspend in adult social care and children's social care has been referenced again tonight as well. And I have to say, we have had unprecedented pressures in both of these services, some of which could not have been predicted. For example, the numbers of children coming into care. These have increased over 30% just in 1 year. The opposition accuses the administration of not investing in any regeneration other than in Wokingham. This is totally false. We're investing in new leisure centres, Bournemouth, Woodley, Armfield, Ryan. We're investing...
There's a specific point. A specific point that actually the leisure centres are not included in regeneration spend, and nor is the other thing. That is a definition that is in your own capital programme. If you want to include the other things, we have to include the other things that are also being built in Wokingham. So if you want to include Bournemouth Leisure Centre, you've got to include Carnival Pool, which I did not.
Thank you very much.
I will continue. We're investing in new schools, as we've heard from Mark, right across the borough. I don't know why inheritance tax has been referenced in central government by our Labour member, but I would just reference that actually the Conservatives have meant that families keep more money and families get taxed less, the Conservative way. This council and its valued staff delivers an outstanding service, new homes, new schools, new facilities.